All right, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Pattison Report. I'm Brandon. He's Ryan. And a bit of a slow week this week as far as sports news goes. Slow week last week, too. So we thought, taking a week off, come back this week, you'd have, two full weeks of topics. But it turns out when your football team's not playing and your baseball team's the best in the MLB, there's not a whole lot to talk about and nothing's going wrong. So for probably the first time in the history of this show, we're just going to talk about what's going right. So Ryan, it goes without saying, I think the Phillies have the best staff in baseball. I know power rankings wise, there's a couple, that kind of jockey for position where it's 1 to 3 is kind of open. I know the Tigers have a great staff too. I'm missing somebody else. The Braves still, even without Strider, have a great staff, but it's got to be the Phillies by a pretty comfortable margin, right?
Yeah, 1 through 3, it's just if Nola's on, it's an absolute terror show at this point. You got Ranger pitching
ace.
Yep, really. And then, I saw a tweet today. It was pretty funny. It was like, even though the fan base complains about Taijuan Walker, we win about 80 to 90% of his starts.
Yeah, when you think about it, look, obviously our top 3, I think, are aces on 2/3 of the league. No matter where you put them, 2/3 of the league, Nola might be their top option. Wheeler, I would say, is probably the ace on even, maybe 90% of the league. Suarez is getting in that conversation. But then even you look deeper than that. Sanchez at 4 came out scorching hot, came back down to earth, but him coming back down to earth is still our 4th starter is at 3.3 ERA and consistently goes 7. Walker's rounding into form. The ERA is a little bit ugly because he had those his early starts. That first inning was pretty unkind to him. So he's still sitting at a high 4 ERA, but it's not reflective of how well he's pitched. So you could go. I would say, Sanchez is probably a 3 on most other teams. He's our 4. And, Walker probably on non-contenders, he's your 3. So this team is really, there's not a weak spot in the rotation, I guess, is the long and the short of it. So much so that Spencer Turnbull is pitching to a sub-2 ERA and was the odd man out in the starting rotation, which is, bananas to me.
I still don't agree with that, but...
Me either, but you know as well as I do that
money talks.
Names and money talk. And Taijuan Walker was originally brought here to be the 3, if we're being honest with ourselves. This last summer, Ranger was coming off of a hot postseason run, but he wasn't really established as a top-end starter. He was giving you 5 innings typically, just kind of getting the job done. So you bring in Walker to probably be your 3. And to have a year later to have him possibly fall out of the rotation wouldn't look good for the Bills. So that was a little bit of covering their own ass. You paid Turnbull $2 million, and he's the expendable guy, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Like we said, money talks, man. It's just, maybe the postseason will change if we have to go to that point, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, yeah, the postseason classically, and we'll get into this in a second, the Phillies have stuck to a pretty tight 3-man rotation in the postseason. If we needed to, sometimes we've gone.
Sometimes the 4.
Sometimes 4, which this year would probably be Sanchez at that point, probably. In past years, you've done that piggyback game, but I think this rotation is good enough now. We don't have to do that. But while we're talking about high leverage games in the playoffs and whatnot, as it sits right now, has the ace of this team changed?
This is the hardest possible question to answer. I want to say no off of principle, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I still think when the chips are down, and this is probably unfair of me to think because Rangers giving me no reason to believe this. When the chips are down, I still think Zach Wheeler can be the most unhittable guy on the staff. Like his stuff is so electric. He's been there, done that. So I think he's still your ace. But man, Ranger is making it really hard to keep it that way.
Yeah,
Honestly, most of that argument is based on past fights.
yeah, the sample size is bigger for Wheeler, and we've seen it. He came out of the bullpen in Game 7. We had him coming out of the bullpen, and the whole city knew, like, okay, this is our chance to get back in it because he's gonna be the stopper.
And I think it's a little bit of the way they pitch. I love watching Ranger Suarez pitch. I think he's, it's kind of like watching an artist with him because his stuff isn't devastating. He has a very good change. He works the curveball when he needs to, and he can dot that fastball. But I mean, none of his stuff is A-plus stuff. His location's great. He's really, his IQ is really high. And he wins kind of on the margins. Whereas Zach Wheeler can get you out any number of ways, and you'll never figure it out. So,
see, this is the easier of the two questions you could have asked me. Who is the ace? Yeah, sure, it's Zach Wheeler. I mean, it's probably Zach Wheeler if we're asking my question. Who you giving the ball to Game 7? Like
Game 7. It is an interesting question.
It's interesting. It's still Wheeler, but it's. I think it's a lot more interesting than who is the ace.
Yeah, because
you're using whoever that doesn't go out of those two out of the bullpen over Nola, 20 times out of 20.
And that's why I'm giving Wheeler the ball Game 7 is because if you're using that philosophy. Remember, Ranger has a decent amount of experience coming out of the pen. One of Girardi's more heinous crimes was using him as a bullpen owner, which, it sucks. He set Ranger back a year developmentally, but that means he has almost half a season of bullpen work behind him. So if I had to pick somebody to piggyback on the back of Wheeler, Ranger's more comfortable doing it. But then it would have to be, in order for me to give Wheeler the start, he would have to be 100%. Like if I have a Ranger Suarez sitting on 4 days rest versus Wheeler on short rest, Ranger's getting the ball.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, you say, oh yeah, last year though, that's a serious discussion. Would you rather have, a slightly tired Wheeler or a fresh Suarez? I think this year there's no doubt about it. If Ranger's fresh, he's getting the ball.
Staff's scary, man. If you told me we're getting 7 to 8 innings of Wheeler and Ranger in a Game 7, I'd put the money line odds at crazy. I'd go crazy with the money line.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's easy to overlook Nola because when he's been here so long and he has some frustrating innings from time to time. Yeah. But I mean, he's turned out some gems this year also. Like when he gets hot.
I'm not discrediting him. I'm just saying I don't think I'd want to use him out of the pen.
No, because I don't think he's ever done it.
He's never done it, and I don't want to mess with that stuff. Wheeler, we at least saw a little bit of it. Ranger has all that experience. That's why we're not talking about Nola. Nola will probably pitch the Game 6 if we're being honest. If it comes to that point.
Yeah, and assuming
he's out of the picture in my discussion that we're having here, honestly.
But if we back this, so we're talking about the NLCS here in theory. So I mean, if we're talking the first round though, it's the NLDS, which is crazy. I'm not gonna knock on wood here because it's May and we're talking about the DS. But in a 5-game series, I think you keep things the same way and you go Wheeler, Nola, Suarez because outside of Zach Wheeler, there's nobody I'd want to have on the mound to be able to clinch a series.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, Nola's probably going to, looking at it in retrospect, give us a strong outing because he shows up all the time. I mean, of course, there's been ups and downs, but that's because I think he's the longest tenured Philly on the roster right now. Like,
he is, and to his credit, most of his downs haven't come in the postseason.
We've seen it all with him. That's kind of why, like, we haven't seen it all with Wheeler. He was a Met for a long time, and then Ranger has recently come into this form. So like,
yeah, and Wheeler's been all sunshine and rainbows pretty much since he's been at Philly, which is great. I mean, he's been at Philly for 4 years, but I mean, Nola, we've been burned a couple times with Nola, so you're a little bit more hesitant to co-sign.
Oh yeah, Wheeler. The signing worked out perfectly because they expected him to be the number 2 guy to Nola. Like that's what the original money was. And
his initial deal was only slightly north of $100 million.
That his deal was totally to be the number 2, and he took the absolute next step into being one of the best pitchers in baseball with this coaching staff.
Pretty quickly, like that, his second season, you kind of got a sense of like, whoa, this dude's the real deal. Speaking of, the whole team stepping up all over the place. We've talked about the guys that you expect great things out of, and that's Wheeler and Nola, and then coming into the season, Suarez to a degree, nothing like this. But right now, the Phils are a little bit banged up, especially missing Trey Turner. The bench has kind of stepped up in a bigger way than I think a lot of us expected. The team was deep coming into the season, but you really didn't want to have to rely on a lot of Sosa games, Clemens games. Pache, I think he's been playing phenomenal, but when you have Trey go down, you're hoping like you can keep your head above water. They've put the pedal down with him now. So, if you had to pick, a rotation guy who stepped up, who's kind of carried the most weight here?
Looking at recent stats, it's got to be Edmundo. He stepped up. He stepped up majorly offensively in the past couple of weeks. He's just been hitting the ball well at the bottom of the order, turning it over to the guys at the top still, and he's kind of picked up a lot of Trey's production, if we're being honest. Trey's incredible, but Edmundo's just been on a hot streak. I don't expect to continue like a consistency of Trey Turner, but still, this team's fully meshing and hasn't lost a beat. Edmundo's picked up the offense perfectly. Bohm's raking still. It's just one of those things where it's got to be Edmundo.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I'm glad you said Edmundo because I don't think he's been getting enough credit for what he's done. He's made 12 of 14 starts since Trey went down. He was supposed to be a spot starter with Merrifield taking a lot of that time away. But we knew he was a great fielder, but the offensive production has been incredible, and you don't hear his name enough. But the reason you don't is because Cody Clemens has been sizzling hot since being brought up from AAA. And I still think you're absolutely right. Sosa is the guy who stepped up in the biggest way. But we would be remiss not to mention getting that kind of production.
He plugged right into his spot, and
he was a toss-in on that Soto deal.
And of course, you lose a little bit of the speed short, but everything else, it's been you can't ask for more, really.
Yeah, he can play the whole infield. They've put him at third sometimes. On days where Harp's been out with that brief concussion, you move Bohm to first. There's been days where Stott's getting the breather, you put Clemens to second. He can play the whole infield, but the power's been there. The RBI numbers. It seems like every time he comes up with runners on, you can pretty much count on a couple guys coming in. They had that huge clutch home run. That was an absolute laser out to right field. I believe that was the National Series. So it's just one of those seasons where it's you're getting production from guys you don't expect, and it's put the Phillies in a really good but a little bit tricky situation because we went out in the offseason and spent pretty good money on a utility player in Whit Merrifield. I think it was like an $8 million deal, which for a bench guy is a pretty significant investment. And we haven't mentioned his name as one of the bench guys who stepped up. So, it's the two guys ahead of him got on a heater. Whit's been kind of up and down all season. If you're the Phillies, if you're Dombrowski, if you're Topper, and this is your all-in season, who's the odd man out on Trey's inevitably back to probably 2 weeks?
Gosh, that's really tough. I don't know what can make this team all that better. I know there's going to be a chip shove, but what's the chip shove? A bullpen guy?
No, I don't mean going out and getting somebody. We have one too many guys on the roster. So if Trey were to come back tomorrow, somebody would have to go in. The tricky thing is Whit doesn't have any options. I don't believe Sosa has options. Pache doesn't have options, and Clemens has an option left, but he's red hot.
You can't do that.
So somebody's got to go. And I don't know who it's going to be.
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you. That's tough. maybe you package one of these guys in a trade with a prospect, like two of these guys. I don't. You can't break this chemistry up either. I don't know.
You can't
I
get
don't
rid of
know if
multiple.
Witt's as big a part of the chemistry. I know Edmundo definitely is because he's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Cody Clemens, I don't know either, but like, I don't know, man. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, the easy way out is Cody is the only one left with minor league options. So, you can send him down and not lose anybody out of the organization. And then you can make him one of those September call-up when the roster expands in September. The gamble is, I mean, you have a guy who's red hot right now. You don't know if you're going to get that same production in September. So is he going to be the same guy you bring back up, which is kind of tricky. I don't think, especially the way he's playing now, Pache, no way he clears waivers. So if you DFA him, he will be picked up.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sosa. Merrifield, I believe he's out of options, and I believe he can't be traded until like the midway point of June because he was a free agent acquisition.
Yeah.
So that kind of puts you in a bind there. One guy that I don't think people are talking enough about who has minor league options and we have this very solid plan B, and that's Johan Rojas, which I know isn't a popular choice because we're enamored with what his defense was and his potential. But he's a guy with minor league options who struggled with his defense this year, which is supposed to be his calling card. And you have an extremely capable center fielder, Christian Pache, who's playing really good ball right now.
I mean, so isn't Marsh playing good ball as well? I mean, against the other side of the plate, I know that's the argument. They play.
Yeah, well, Marsh
they play versus lefties. Marsh plays versus righties.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but if we're looking at what keeps this team as whole as possible and keeps as much pop in the lineup as possible, I mean, you make Marsh an everyday player, but Pache makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Marsh plays left anyway. I don't know why I was fumbling that. I was watching too many Kyle Schwarber field highlight videos.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does platoon at times with Pache and Merrifield in left, but I mean, you can make him an everyday player extremely easily.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so tough.
I just don't know if they have the balls to do it. And I kind of get it. They think the kid's going to be special. I hope he is. So maybe sending him down crushes his momentum. I don't know. But if we're talking about an all-in year, and this is you got the team, everybody's clicking. I don't think anything should matter in the winning. Feelings have to go out the window.
I agree.
So I think it's him or Clemens. I think that if I'm Dave Dombrowski, I'm quietly hoping that Cody Clemens cools off, so you make that decision a little bit easier. But I don't think he is. He's barreling up baseballs, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, real quick before we jump over to the Wells Fargo Center, with a team this talented, the Phillies are looking at having several All-Stars on the roster. Who do you think is likely to represent us in the All-Star game?
Oh my goodness! Are you talking starters? You talking starters and reserves?
Just be there.
I mean, I gotta count the number in my head. Oh my gosh,
I think Bone's a shoe-in.
Bowman Harper, they'll be there.
Bowman Harper shoe-in. From the rotation, you're looking at probably Wheeler and Suarez. I mean, Suarez is the number 3 ranked pitcher in MLB right now.
Yeah.
So they're both in.
I think they're both in. I mean, maybe someone from the pen.
You could probably see Matt. I mean, by the numbers, Matt Strong should go. You could also make a really strong case for Hoff. There's so many great closers, so it depends on how they look at him.
Yeah, I think Stott has a good case.
Stott has a case. I think he's a little bit of a longer shot. I put him in the same bin as JT.
I would put him as a fringe guy. I'd say he's a good shot of making it.
Yeah,
but
I think JT.
I wouldn't put it as a lock. I mean, if we're doing locks, it's Bohm, Harper, Ranger, Wheeler, and then someone.
I think. I mean, unless he doesn't have enough starts, which not starts, enough innings. Which I mean, 22 innings at this point in the season is pretty good. I mean, I don't see how you leave Strom out. He hasn't allowed a run in his last 20 appearances.
Yeah.
So that's still 5 Phillies heading to All-Star Weekend.
I think
Next year,
more.
There could be more, especially if guys get hurt. Guys fill in. Noah could be a starter filling, but I don't think they'll let us have 3.
I mean, we could look down at our phones and then Kyle Schwarber could hit 20 home runs over the next 30.
Yeah, Schwartz could get hot. JT could stay hot. I mean, there's not a lot of great hitting catchers in the NL. I know Will Smith is one of them. But JT could play his way into it if he gets hot.
Will Smith's kind of cooled down. If you asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, no way he starts. Because Will Smith is just on a tear.
So we'll see. To wrap it up.
Oh, boy.
The Phillies are doing great. Sixers, less. The only guys we're sure are going to be back. We have Tyrese coming back. We have Joel coming back. I know Tyrese isn't under contract, but that's a formality. We're going to sign him. And Paul Reed is under contract, and Daryl Morey has said he is coming back. So we have 3 guys. We've been tied to Paul George, and then more recently, LeBron James, OG Anunoby, and today, Zach LaVine. So of those 4, which ones are smoke and mirrors, and which one is where there's smoke, there's fire?
Oh, I mean, I got to get to my sources if Bronny's attending Villanova, but I think he's going to the league. But
yeah, somebody check in with the Cog and Toboggan and see if they saw LeBron at the Black Horse Pike Wawa.
What an account, man!
I mean, he's the man. Shout out to Cog.
I mean, we have to start from the top. There is definitely fire around Paul George. I don't like it, but I believe there's too much there. LeBron, I think
he's 34.
Yeah, I think if you have a chance for LeBron to play for your organization, I think you wholeheartedly have to take it, no matter what, just how big of an impact it is. I don't know if I like it totally, but I understand it.
Not a 4-year deal. Oh, maybe a 1-1.
A 1-1, but I don't know if he takes the 1-1. But if he takes the 1-1, 200%, I'm all in. But if he wants a 4-year deal, it's no, not really. But it is LeBron. 40. I could talk myself into a 4-year deal for LeBron way quicker than I can for Paul George.
I'm the other way. I mean, I want to do either one. LeBron's 40.
I will take 2 years of LeBron over 4 years of Paul George.
Okay, that's fair.
I think the real take 2 productive years. LeBron's not. It's gonna be different for LeBron because he won't be asked to man the whole load like he did in LA. He'll have Embiid, he'll have Maxey. LaVine,
but can he take his hands off the wheel?
Remains to be seen.
He's never done it, so it doesn't remain to be seen.
If I had to power rank them, how I would prefer them, I think it'd be Ingram 1, LeBron 2, Paul George 3, Zach LaVine 4. That's where I'm at, and I think LeBron and Paul George, the rumors are there. I'm iffy on Brandon Ingram, and I don't think it's there for Zach LaVine.
No, well, Zach LaVine wouldn't be a splash as much as Chicago was looking to get out from under that albatross of a contract. It would pretty much have to be. It would be pretty close to a salary dump. We would have to receive LaVine and assets. We'd have to find a way to make the money work. We have the cap space for it, but his deal is huge. So it would be LaVine and assets for us to take him off of their hands.
It worries me. We talked about the whole Harden thing though forever about how he stunted the development of Maxey. I don't think LaVine's going to want to take his hands off the ball.
No, I agree. I don't want him either. The guy I want out of that list is
Ingram will. Paul George will. LeBron, we don't know, but it's LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's 4th in my power rankings.
Yeah, get me OG. I don't know if you watched the next series.
You didn't mention him. OG would be.
Yeah, OG.
I think he might be 1.
A lot of people don't think he'll leave the Knicks because he really blossomed in that system. But he is due a payday, and he's kind of, he's been. This year was kind of his, not reputation rebuild because he's always been, a really solid player and good luck guy, but Toronto was bad, so he didn't get a lot of spotlight. The Knicks built up his value, so he's going to want to get paid. I'm happy to pay him. I don't think he's a max guy. don't really want to use a max on him. I mean, I'll get close.
You have to.
You have, yeah, you probably do.
have
If,
to.
But I think he's everything Tobias Harris was supposed to be, except we've seen him do it on the biggest stage. We just watched him come off a playoff run where he's either fallen back and followed Dante and Jalen's lead, or there's been games that those guys couldn't get it going and he put up there, which is exactly what we need.
Look, we'll know how that saga plays out with OG after the Donovan Mitchell stuff inevitably plays its way out because we know what's happening. And Donovan Mitchell has been linked to New York for I don't know how many years now, back when he was in Utah.
So that did a bit of a 180 this morning.
Really? I missed that.
Yeah, so Utah fired JB Bickerstaff.
That's Cleveland, you mean?
Cleveland, yes. Yeah, so they fired Bickerstaff, which I was stunned because he took.
I was expecting it.
Yeah, you heard the reports of the players not liking him, but I
have never seen a team collapse that much 24 hours after a playoff loss to end their season.
Yeah, they hate it.
There was reports about every single starter.
Which is crazy, but he took a team where the star didn't want to be there and the rest of the team, talent-wise, was average at best. To, Game 7 of the conference semis against a very good, Boston squad?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he deserved to lose his job. Nevertheless, evidently Mitchell didn't like him either because today a report came out that there is a strong interest between both sides to sign a max in Cleveland now that Bickerstaff is out. So that might have changed everything. And I think that's why he lost his job.
Yeah, that'll do it. If it's a coach or a player, there's always going to be decent coaches out there. And, if you lose Donovan Mitchell, you lose a lot of money. Let's just be honest about that.
You do.
Fans aren't going to fill the seats anymore. You lose a lot, and then, the dominoes will fall where they will.
Yeah.
If he stays, Garland's gone. So maybe, Philly could work out a 3-way trade where Garland goes somewhere else, and maybe, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, because we have no room for Garland here. He and Maxey are the exact same. I mean, they're.
No, I'm not. That's why I'm saying maybe they get in on it some way else.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, everybody enjoy Memorial Day weekend. Do something mildly stupid. Stay safe doing it, and go Phils. Peace.